When people talk about bodybuilding, most folks picture heavy lifting, strict diets, a few enhancers, and ironclad discipline. And yeah, those things are definitely key for anyone aiming to compete at a high level. But there's one silent, game-changing factor that often separates the great from the truly legendary: genetics. That's right. Your DNA plays a massive role when it comes to reaching the top. Ever wondered why some people seem to blow up in size so fast, sculpting insane physiques, even with less time in the gym? That's not just luck. It's biology. It's genetics. While some are grinding hard to put on just a pound of muscle, others seem like they were born with perfect muscle bellies, ideal proportions, and insertions that make every pose look like a piece of art. Here's the raw truth. Without elite genetics, the dream of competing at the top of professional bodybuilding might stay just that, a dream. Even with the best supplements, a perfectly dialed-in diet, the most brutal training, your body will only go as far as your genetic code allows. And no, that's not meant to kill your motivation. It's just about being real. In this video, we're diving headfirst into this topic. Who are the bodybuilders with the most mind-blowing genetics of all time? The ones who, even among monsters, stood out for something beyond hard work, an inborn edge. A physique that looks like it was handcrafted by the universe just for the stage. But we're not just talking numbers or aesthetics. We're digging into stories, fun facts, and iconic moments that prove these athletes weren't just good, they were genetically elite. And let me ask you, have you ever stopped to figure out what your own genetic strengths and weaknesses are? Ever noticed how some muscle groups on you grow way faster than others? So get comfortable, because we're about to show you the most genetically gifted bodybuilders in history. And when the video's over, tell me, which one do you think has the most blessed physique the sport has ever seen? Dexter Jackson is one of those names in bodybuilding that really needs no introduction. Known as the Blade, he didn't just win the Mr. Olympia title in 2008. He earned massive respect for something incredibly rare in this sport: consistency. For decades, Dexter stayed among the best in the world, even as the generations of athletes around him changed completely. And that says a lot about his genetics. Here's one of the craziest facts about him. Over the course of his career, Dexter packed on more than 220 pounds, 100 kilograms of muscle. Yeah, you heard that right. His gains weren't just big. They were steady and long-lasting, like his DNA had a built-in setting for nonstop hypertrophy. Even as he aged, his physique seemed to laugh in the face of time. And get this, Dexter pretty much avoided cardio. That's right. While most guys are grinding on treadmills and Stairmasters just to stay shredded, he relied almost entirely on his genetics. The result? A dry, chiseled, ultra-dense physique that had judges and fans dropping their jaws nearly every time he stepped on stage. But it doesn't stop there. His diet? Not exactly clean. While others were weighing every gram of rice and measuring drops of coconut oil, Dexter was known for keeping his meals a little more flexible, or as some would call it, dirty. And even so, he still looked like a walking Mr. Olympia poster. If that's not proof of elite genetics, what is? Imagine gaining muscle while eating whatever and skipping cardio. Sounds like a dream, right? For Dexter, it was just another day in the life. Of course, he still trained hard. No doubt about that. But the key point is how insanely well his body responded to everything. Another jaw-dropping fact: his competitive longevity. He competed in over 80 pro shows and was almost always in the top tier. His recovery was fast, his muscles stayed full and dense, and even with the years piling up, he kept looking fresh on stage. Honestly, do you know anyone else with that kind of durability at the top? Dexter Jackson is living proof that sometimes genetics just win. But he's also a reminder that smart choices and long-term consistency can make those genetics shine even brighter. So, real talk, if you had his DNA, do you think you'd be able to keep that level up for so long? Kevin Levrone is one of those names that always pops up when you talk about jaw-dropping physiques. Even though he never won the Mr. Olympia, he's still widely seen as one of the greatest bodybuilders of all time. His stage presence was electric, his physique was borderline perfect, and his genetics? Just unreal. Every pose looked like it had been hand-sculpted. What really stood out about Levrone were his shoulders and arms. Massive, round, and insanely defined. They looked next level, even when compared to legends from both the golden era and the modern age. In a lot of shows, all it took was him raising his arms and the crowd would lose it. It was impossible not to notice how insanely gifted he was in those areas. Even though he never took home the Sando Trophy, Kevin won an incredible 23 IFBB Pro shows. That's a number only a tiny handful of athletes have ever reached. More than that, he was always a serious threat at the Olympia, going head-to-head with guys like Dorian Yates and Ronnie Coleman, two of the most dominant champions in the sport's history. Here's a wild fact that shows just how freaky his genetics were. Kevin was known for taking long breaks from intense training and still coming back in competition shape within just a few months. That's right, his body seemed to remember its peak size and density almost like muscle memory on steroids. Have you ever seen another athlete bounce back that easily? He even stepped on stage at 51 years old, after more than a decade away, and still brought a physique that made guys half his age look average. That alone proves how his DNA seemed tailor-made for elite bodybuilding. Not just anyone can do that, and even fewer can do it with that much style. A lot of people still wonder, what if Kevin had gone all in on bodybuilding 100% of the time, like some of his rivals did? Could he have won the Olympia? Could he have dominated an entire era? We'll never know for sure. But what we do know is that Kevin Levrone had one of the most mind-blowing physiques the sport has ever seen. If there's one prime example of freaky, almost unbelievable genetics in bodybuilding, it's Lee Priest, known as the Blonde Myth, or as many fans call him, the Little Giant. He shattered every idea of what size and age should mean in the sport. Standing just over 5 feet 4 inches, 1.63 meters, he proved that size isn't everything, as long as your muscles are ridiculously dense, round, and full. The craziest part? At just 17 years old, Lee had a physique that put grown men to shame. We're talking thick arms, a deep chest, and muscle definition that most people take a decade to build. He looked like he was born for bodybuilding. Ever seen photos of him at that age? It's the kind of stuff that makes you question if they're even real. His body responded to training in a wild way. A little stimulus was all it took to trigger major growth. That's not to say he didn't work hard. Lee trained like a beast, but the difference is his genetics made each session count like 3 or 4 times more than the average guy. It was like he was permanently in growth mode. Even though he was shorter than most of his competitors, Lee would step on stage next to giants and still steal the spotlight. His arms are still considered some of the most mind-blowing in bodybuilding history. Just look up a photo of him hitting a biceps pose. It looks like his muscles are about to burst out of his skin. And it wasn't just about looks. Lee had real results in the IFBB, always remembered for his symmetrical, thick, and ultra-conditioned physique. Even though he never won a Mr. Olympia, he still cemented his name in history. Another clear sign that genetics can level the playing field, even when height isn't on your side. One more cool thing. Lee's always been super open about his journey, training methods, and even the controversies in the sport. That honesty only earned him more respect, and today he's still a powerful voice in the bodybuilding world. His story inspires tons of younger lifters who think they're too small to chase big dreams. Darren Charles might not be the first name that comes to mind when you think of Mr. Olympia legends, but when it comes to raw genetics, this guy has to be in the conversation. He's one of those rare bodybuilders who made it to the pro level with an elite physique without relying on high doses of anabolic steroids. That alone puts Darren in a league of his own. For much of his career, Darren was seen as a natural athlete, meaning he either used minimal gear or none at all. And yet his physique was absolutely wild. Thick muscle, razor-sharp definition, and perfectly balanced proportions. It's honestly hard to believe he kept that look at least as far as anyone knows, without the same chemical help most pros rely on. And here's a bombshell. Darren never did cardio. That's right, no treadmill, no Stairmaster, no bike. Even without any cardio, he'd show up shredded, dialed in, and stage ready. While most guys were grinding for hours trying to burn fat, he leaned solely on his diet. And let's be real, his elite-level genetics to do the job. Over the years, Darren racked up wins and built a reputation for having one of the most aesthetic physiques of the modern era. Still, he never took home a Mr. Olympia title. And according to many experts, that's probably because he refused to go all in on the heavy chemical protocols so common at the top. While others were pushing the limits to chase the crown, Darren stayed true to his approach. That raises a powerful question. How far can someone go on pure genetics and hard work? Darren went far, and his physique spoke volumes. Even without the extreme measures others used, he brought a look that was straight up carved from stone. Honestly, if bodybuilding were judged purely on aesthetics, he'd have taken home way more trophies. Darren was also known for his professionalism and integrity, on and off the stage. He inspired tons of younger athletes looking for a healthier path in the sport. And even if he didn't grab the biggest titles, he earned something just as rare: genuine respect for staying true to himself. When we talk about insane genetics in bodybuilding, there's no way we don't mention Ronnie Coleman. For many, he's simply the greatest of all time. 8-time Mr. Olympia champ. And he didn't just win, he dominated. What makes Ronnie so mind-blowing is that he combined 3 things you almost never see together: massive size, razor-sharp conditioning, and flawless symmetry. Ronnie's physique looked like something from another planet. We're talking over 290 pounds, 130 plus kg, of pure muscle on stage, veins popping, deep cuts everywhere. And even with all that mass, he kept his proportions balanced and hit every pose like a master. How is that even possible? The answer, once again, comes down to genetics. Even among the best in the world, Ronnie stood in a league of his own. His lats were so wide they looked like wings, his legs like tree trunks, and his arms seemed to ignore the limits of human growth. And what's even crazier, he managed to keep that look for years, never losing that freaky density or definition. Of course, the man trained like a beast. Every fan has seen those legendary gym clips of him screaming, "Yep, buddy," while throwing around weights that would crush most mortals. But let's be real, no amount of training or gear creates that kind of body without some once-in-a-generation genetic code. Even in the off-season, Ronnie looked like he was just weeks away from stepping on stage. And beyond the muscle, Ronnie had the perfect bone structure for bodybuilding: a small waist, wide clavicles, and a super clean midsection. That just made his muscles pop even more. It was like his entire body was engineered for maximum visual impact. Seriously, have you ever seen anyone else with that combo? Even after retirement, and despite dealing with some serious health issues, Ronnie remains a living legend. His humility, his energy, and the legacy he left in the sport continue to inspire lifters all over the world. His physique is still the gold standard. I mean, who hasn't heard the phrase, the greatest bodybuilder of all time? Exactly. So what about you? Do you think Ronnie Coleman is the #1 of all time? Or is there someone else you think gets close to that level of genetic perfection? Drop your thoughts in the comments. This debate never gets old. Phil Heath is easily one of the most complete bodybuilders in history, and without a doubt, one of the clearest examples of near-perfect genetics the sport has ever seen. With 7 straight Mr. Olympia wins, he completely ruled the 2010s, showing off a physique that many still call the most aesthetically complete of all time. So what was his secret? A rare combo of god-tier genetics and obsessive attention to detail. Nicknamed the Gift, and for good reason. Phil looked like he was born with every trait a bodybuilder could dream of. His muscles popped with an insane 3D effect that almost didn't look real. Round shoulders, full arms, dense chest, sculpted legs. He looked like he was engineered in a lab. What made Phil's physique so next level was the fact that he had no weak points. Most athletes shine in one area, but fall short in others. Not Phil. Everything was in the right place, with perfect balance, density, and definition. That's the holy grail of bodybuilding, and something very few ever achieve. And even though his bone structure wasn't ideal, his clavicles were narrower than average. Phil turned that into a non-issue. His delts were so developed, they created the illusion of insane width, and his tight midsection gave him a clean, polished look. He's the perfect example of what happens when top-tier genetics meet elite-level precision. During his Olympia reign, Phil was almost untouchable. His competitors might have been huge, but Phil always came in fuller, sharper, and more balanced. That just shows how well he maximized what he was born with. Every inch of his body looked like it was carved and refined to perfection. Sure, some people had things to say about his attitude or how he carried himself off stage, but nobody ever questioned his genetics. Even today, fans and experts break down his physique as the gold standard of muscular symmetry and shape. He raised the bar and pushed a whole new generation to chase that rare sweet spot between size and aesthetics. Lee Haney is another name that left a permanent mark on bodybuilding history. 8-time Mr. Olympia champ. He was the first to hit that number, way before Ronnie Coleman matched the record. But what really makes Haney's legacy stand out is that he did it all with a totally different approach. No crazy workouts, no extreme diets. His body just responded on a whole other level. While most guys bragged about training to failure or grinding out endless hours of cardio, Haney followed a simple but powerful motto: stimulate, don't annihilate. For him, the key wasn't killing yourself in the gym, it was training smart. And it worked. His body grew balanced, dense, and aesthetic, even with a more measured approach. Here's a wild fact. Haney used to eat candy and treats, even in the weeks leading up to competitions. Seriously. While most bodybuilders cut sugar like it's poison, Haney trusted his body and his genetics to process it efficiently. And guess what? He still showed up on stage shredded dry and full. His physique was the definition of balance. Plenty of muscle, but with style. Big, but not freakish. He had a tight waist, wide lats that flared like wings, and everything looked just right. He was the perfect bridge between the classic era and the more modern, mass-driven age of bodybuilding. Haney's longevity and the quality of his competition years say a lot about his genetics too. He rarely dealt with major injuries and always looked healthy, even during peak prep. That means his body not only responded well to training, but also recovered like a machine. That kind of durability is rare in this sport. Outside the stage, Haney was also known for his spirituality and for promoting a balanced, healthy lifestyle. He wasn't just a physical champion, he was emotionally and mentally grounded too. That made his success feel even more natural, like he was truly built for this. So what about you? Do you vibe more with the brutal go hard or go home training style? Or are you team stimulate, don't annihilate like Haney? Do you think someone could still win in today's bodybuilding world using that approach? Drop your take in the comments. Flex Wheeler is, for many, the greatest bodybuilder to never win a Mr. Olympia title. But that fact doesn't take away one bit from how jaw-dropping his genetics were. Known as the Sultan of Symmetry, Flex had a physique so aesthetic, so perfectly proportioned and refined, it honestly looked like each muscle had been hand-sculpted by an artist. His symmetry was so flawless, it caught the attention of legends. Arnold Schwarzenegger, yeah, that Arnold, once said Flex had the best physique he'd ever seen. And even Ronnie Coleman, who beat him in some epic showdowns, openly admitted that Flex was genetically superior. Praise like that doesn't get thrown around lightly. What truly made Flex stand out was the harmony in his body. He wasn't the heaviest guy on stage, nor the most vascular. But that tiny waist, those full muscle bellies, and the flawless balance from top to bottom created a look that mesmerized judges and crowds alike. He was the kind of bodybuilder who made people jump out of their seats before the results were even called. Despite his freakish genetics, Flex faced real challenges that limited how far he could go. Health issues and other struggles kept him from dominating the way he could have. Still, his legacy is untouchable. You'll find his name near the top of just about every most perfect physiques list, whether he took home the Sando or not. Another reason Flex's greatness stands tall is how he stayed relevant in the sport after retiring. He became a respected figure, mentor, and source of inspiration to a whole new generation of lifters. His story proves that sometimes talent is so undeniable that you don't need a trophy to be recognized as one of the all-time greats. Ever watched one of Flex Wheeler's posing routines? It's like watching a statue come to life. His flow, stage presence, and control turned every routine into a visual masterpiece. The man didn't just pose, he performed. Big Ramy is nothing short of a modern bodybuilding phenomenon. His name exploded onto the global stage when he showed up, seemingly out of nowhere, with a physique that looks straight up impossible. In just 4 years of serious training, Ramy built a body that most athletes spend decades chasing and still fall short of. His transformation was so fast it felt like something out of a sci-fi movie. One of his most jaw-dropping feats? Stepping on stage at 300 pounds, 135 kilograms of muscle. And we're not just talking weight. It was dense, sculpted muscle with enough detail and symmetry to beat out some of the sport's biggest names. The world was stunned. How does someone build that much mass that quickly? Experts started breaking down his frame and quickly came to a conclusion. Ramy's genetics are on another level. Wide bone structure, perfect joint proportions for holding huge muscle, and a freakish ability to respond to training. Every workout seemed to multiply his gains. It wasn't just hard work, it was hard work in a body made to grow. Even among the giants of bodybuilding, Big Ramy looked like a mountain. Standing next to seasoned pros, he stood out immediately. His delts were massive, his legs looked like concrete pillars, and his upper body was just wide. Visually, he dominated the stage the second he walked out. People often said his progress defied logic, and in a way they were right. In a sport where progress is usually slow and incremental, Ramy burst in with a physique ready to fight for the top. Sure, he had access to world-class resources and coaching, but without his outrageous genetics, none of that would have propelled him this fast. He finally silenced the doubters by winning Mr. Olympia in 2020, proving he wasn't just about size. He brought conditioning, definition, and a smart, dialed-in prep. Even in the years he didn't bring his best, his physique still stood out as one of the biggest and most visually dominant in bodybuilding history. Sergio Oliva, famously known as the Myth, was one of the most game-changing bodybuilders the sport has ever seen. Back in the 60s and 70s, he stepped on stage with a physique that looked like it came from the future. At a time when most physiques were more restrained and streamlined, Sergio brought massive muscles, bulging veins, and a stage presence that absolutely owned the room. He was, without a doubt, a pioneer of the modern bodybuilding aesthetic. The wildest part? He never followed a strict diet. While other athletes were obsessing over every gram of rice, Sergio just ate what he wanted. And yet, he still showed up looking insanely shredded, dense, and perfectly proportioned. That alone is a massive nod to just how freakish his genetics were. Some might even call him a biological anomaly. On top of that, his training was raw and intense, no gimmicks, no fluff. He lifted heavy, kept it simple, and still achieved results that were way ahead of his time. His arms, chest, and lats were on a whole different level. Honestly, it felt like he had landed in the wrong generation, or maybe the right one to shake everything up. Sergio won the Mr. Olympia title 3 times, including a legendary victory over Arnold Schwarzenegger in 1969. Yep, the biggest icon in bodybuilding history had to admit defeat to the Myth that year. Very few can say they beat Arnold, and Sergio did it. And the genetic magic didn't stop with him. His son, Sergio Oliva Jr., also became a professional bodybuilder and has an impressive physique of his own. While Jr. follows a more modern approach with a clean diet and supplementation, it's impossible not to see the inherited gifts: thick muscle, wide structure, and that jaw-dropping presence. Sergio Oliva's story is a powerful reminder of how genetics can truly shape legends. Even without today's advanced resources, he reached insane levels of size and aesthetics. His legacy is still alive, not just in history books, but in every comparison made with today's top-tier physiques. So what do you think? Would Sergio have crushed even more titles if he competed with today's training and prep tools? Or did he already do enough to earn his place among the greatest of all time? Drop your take in the comments. This one's worth debating. Before we wrap up the video, we gotta shout out some legendary genetics that didn't make the top list, but still absolutely deserve recognition. Take Serge Newbred, for example. Back in the 70s, he wowed the world with insane aesthetics and abs that looked carved out of stone, all while keeping his training simple and approaching bodybuilding almost like an art form. Then there's Franco Columbu, Arnold's training partner, who brought crazy dense muscle and freakish strength for someone his size. A true genetic outlier. Another standout, Albert Beckles. This guy was competing at an elite level even into his 50s, rocking a dry, shredded physique that put younger guys to shame. Bob Paris also deserves a spot here, with a physique straight out of Greek mythology. Perfect proportions, symmetry, and clean lines that were a rare sight, even back then. And we can't forget Danny Padilla, the giant killer, who stood under 5 feet 3 inches, less than 1.60 m, but still took down giants on stage thanks to his insane density and perfectly balanced structure. And of course, we couldn't close this out without mentioning Arnold Schwarzenegger. Even with all the titles he racked up, he's still remembered today as one of the most aesthetic and symmetrical bodybuilders of all time. His genetics were off the charts. Tiny waist, broad chest, full biceps, and that charisma that made the whole package unforgettable. Arnold didn't just compete in bodybuilding. He redefined what the ideal physique should look like. And that, plus his impact on and off the stage, makes him a living legend with championship DNA. So now that you've seen all these next-level genetics, tell us, which of these athletes impressed you the most? Do you lean more toward Ronnie Coleman's explosive size, Flex Wheeler's flawless symmetry, or Big Ramy's jaw-dropping rise to the top? Drop your thoughts in the comments. We want to hear which physique left you speechless. If you enjoyed this video and want to keep diving into the world of bodybuilding, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the bell so you don't miss a single upload. We've got new videos every week packed with stories, insights, and deep dives into the greatest names in the sport. And hey, if you love content like this, click the card up here and check out this video next. Thanks a ton for watching all the way to the end. Here on the channel, you'll always find real, respectful, and straight-up content made for people who love this incredible sport. See you in the next video. Peace out and stay strong.